Looking for a unique H-Town holiday experience? Cistern Illuminated returns to the Buffalo Bayou Park Cistern December 6th through January 26th. The annual winter light installation transforms the underground reservoir at the Buffalo Bayou Park Cistern, delivering an ethereal experience unlike any other. On selected dates, Cistern Illuminated will be accompanied by Voices of Light choral performances by the Co-Cathedral of the Sacred Heart. Reserve your spot now at buffalobayou.org. That's buffalobayou.org. Today on CityCast Houston, students aren't supposed to cheat in school, but what happens when teachers cheat? Turns out some local teachers have been cheating to get their certification. That's just one of the wild stories from this week that I'm breaking down with Pulitzer Prize finalist Evan Mintz. We'll also get into a fight at City Hall over a loophole in the Firefighter's contract that allows misconduct to stay a secret and silently disappear. And you won't believe which major artist was missing from Houston's Spotify rap list. It's Friday, December 6th. I'm Raheel Ramzanali, and here's what Houston's talking about. Hey, Evan, what's up, man? For the last time this year, welcome to the Friday News Roundup. We are recapping everything in the city. How are you, first of all?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm really looking forward to the end of the year. Hanukkah's late this year, so everybody gets to celebrate holidays at the same time. I'm just filling up closets with presents that I plan to give everyone.
Nice.
And, I'm not looking forward to snow. I don't think we get any snow, but that smell of when you turn on the heater for the first time, that's when it feels like winter in Houston.
Yeah, unfortunately here in Houston, we've been doing AC heater.
Yeah.
So there's been all sorts of weird smells. Hey, as we end the year, we did have our listener appreciation party this week. And I just want to echo the sentiments that I said to everyone that was there at St. Arnold Brewing. Thank you for stopping by. I know it was like weird weather for those of you who could make it. The rain, the traffic, it's Houston, right? So for those of you who did stop by, thank you so much. But I just want to say a big thank you to every listener who has taken time out of their schedule to listen to CityCast Houston throughout the year. Our team works very hard on these episodes, and we love what we do. So when we get messages and when we get people stopping by events, it truly means a lot to us. So a big thank you to all of the listeners, to the contributors like yourself, Evan. Thank you so much for taking time out to join us on these episodes. And just the entire team, I love it here. And I can't wait to keep making episodes here in 2025. Sounds so weird to say. So I just want to start off with that.
I can't wait for the new year, for new listeners, and to do more of these shows because they're the highlight of my year.
Awesome. I love hearing that. Well, let's jump into it because a lot has happened this week, and let's recap some of the big stories. You kick it off. What's your big story of the week?
I think the big story this week is actually a bunch of small stories pointing to a trend, which says that the Houston media is finally starting to cover how Trump-era policies are going to impact our city. Throughout the entire 2024 election cycle, there was so much coverage about the personalities and the campaign tactics, but there wasn't a lot of deep digging into, say, what tariffs will mean for Houston, what Project 2025 will mean for Houston. I mean, earlier this week, I was listening to CityCast talk about how deportations and anti-immigration could hurt the construction industry in Houston, but now we're seeing stories about how the tariffs could really hurt Houston. The agricultural goods that move through our ports, the oil that gets imported from Canada, or just basic manufacturing that goes back and forth across the border. All these things impact our city. Houston Public Media had a good interview with Ed Hers over at UH, who's an expert on these topics, just saying this is really bad news for our city. We are an international port city. We rely on international trade. Anything that slows that down is going to hurt us. The Houston Chronicle, at the same time, had a good article on how Project 2025 calls for the Trump administration to undo a bunch of the energy incentives that were in the big IRA bill passed under Biden. And that's bad stuff for Houston because we are in an energy city, not just oil and gas, but renewables and hydrogen and carbon sequestration. You've even had the CEO of Exxon saying they just want some stability, just keep things as they are. It's fine. And we've seen estimates saying that somewhere near 124,000 jobs could be lost by 2030 in Houston if these incentives are removed. 175,000 fewer jobs by 2035. I mean, Houston and Texas is supposed to be the hotbed of energy for the United States, and we should want to keep it that way.
Okay, Evan, there's a lot to unpack here. I just want to start with this one. The thought that you have of like, why didn't the media cover this during the election, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talking about the policies, talking about how a Trump presidency would impact not only Houston, but Texas and the nation, of course, with some of these upcoming policies. Now, of course, nothing has been put into place, but this is what it looks like it's going to happen. Do you think that would have changed anything? Because let's be honest, the average voter doesn't care about all this, right? It's more about like, what are you going to do for me? And almost the personality, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think it really is. And, people don't know the depths of policy, and I don't expect them to. It's not their day-to-day jobs. But if you look at a lot of the coverage, you had these topics touched on by business reporters, reporters who covered the economy, but not so much on the campaign reporters. And those are the stories that made the headlines. And it just never crossed over. Would it make a difference? I don't know, but I think it would cause people to have conversations about the policies that will actually impact their day-to-day lives. And that's, is Houston going to be a thriving city where the energy industry remains through the 21st century? Or are we going to start to transition to being a 21st century Rust Belt city because we can't keep up?
Sum it up for me. The next 4 years, Houston's energy scene will be blank under President Trump.
Chaotic, I think, is a way to look at it.
Wow. How so?
Well, people don't know what's going to happen. Businesses like stability, they like predictability, so they know where to make their investments. And if you don't know what the tariffs are going to be, if you don't know what's going to be repealed, if you don't know what's going on, then it's going to be chaotic. And people who make these decisions are going to be hesitant to make long-term investments.
All right, chaotic it's going to be. I don't like hearing that, Evan. I don't like chaos. I do not like chaos, especially when it comes to our city.
No, and there's things that people didn't like in the Biden administration. They put holds on LNG export plants. It took them a while to really recognize that oil and gas production is good for America, particularly when we're going head to head with Russia or Saudi Arabia or anyone else around the globe. But you just want things to chill out for a little bit.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. You just want things to be calm and predictable so people can do their work.
That's all we want, is calm and being able to get things done. Okay, I'm going to get to my biggest story, and buckle up, Evan, because this is a wild one from the world of education. Yes, we are talking about education. Now, in October, District Attorney Kim Ogg alleged that 5 Houston area educators were running a teacher certification cheating ring. Let me repeat that. Teacher certification cheating ring that helped hundreds of teachers gain their teaching certification without taking a single test because, well, somebody else was taking it for them. Now, Ogg alleged that at least 200 teachers had falsely gained their certification, and the ringleaders of the scheme made about $1 million in profits. Well, now the Texas Education Agency is doing their own review, and they released a list of 100 teachers who they found were involved in the cheating scandal. And just to show you how widespread the fraud was, and unfortunately, there were dozens of local Houston teachers in our area suspected of cheating to get their certification, and it ranged from a lot of school districts, Evan, across our area. What are your thoughts?
The thing that shocked me the most about all of this, and maybe this reveals my naivety about everything, how hard is the teacher exam that you've got to cheat on it if you're a teacher and you want to teach this topic? Like, who wants to go into a classroom and not know more than your students on the topic? I was actually looking up some of the teacher certification tests, and some of the questions are, tough. You have to have some level of expertise in the field. But like, here's one for social studies, 4th through 8th grade. During the first half of the 19th century, reformers such as Elizabeth Cady Stanton most often based their demands for women's rights on the A, political ideals expressed in the Declaration of Independence, B, constitutional principles stated in the Federalist Papers, C, guarantee of Republican government affirmed in the U.S. Constitution, or D, legal protections contained in the Bill of Rights. What do you think the answer is?
It's D.
D. No, it's A.
Hey, okay.
Hey,
Well,
the Declaration of Independence.
I should have
But
paid you to take my certification.
but these aren't the sort of questions where like you can't just study for a little bit and then know it. Like it seems like
Yeah.
these shouldn't be too tough to pass if you put in a little effort. If you're not willing to put in the effort, why do you want to do the job in the first place?
That's so true. That is so true. And here's the other part of this. Like, how much do the districts care about the teaching certifications? And here's why I'm saying this. I know they do care about it, but how much? Now, depending on the district, some of these teachers that have been named have been fired. Some have been reassigned as the investigation continues. And some, well, we're not sure, Evan, because the district is keeping things very quiet about the status of the teachers named as the investigation continues. I feel like if the name is on the list, of course, these are allegations right now, but the TEA has done their own due diligence. I feel like that's an instant fire. Like, no, you're not teaching in our district, but maybe because of the lack of teachers, because they can't find teachers who want to work in the industry right now, they're like, hey, we just can't get rid of these people right now.
I mean, it's so hard to hire teachers these days,
Mm-hmm.
which is already a challenge, particularly in HISD, given the takeover, given all of the chaos that's happened over there. But at the same time, HISD has brought on board uncertified teachers already to teach classes.
Yeah.
So, like, is the lesson that they shouldn't have tried to cheat in the first place because they don't care about the certification?
That's such a good point. I'm torn on this. Obviously, you don't want a cheating scandal, right?
No.
When it comes to certification, it's terrible, especially when 5 people are running it and having people take your certification test for you. But how much do the districts value this? That's my big thing now.
I think that's the frustration. It seems like that there's no trust from the teachers to the administration, no trust from the administration to the teachers, and nobody's looking out for the kids first.
By the way, I've linked the story in our show notes, and the names of the teachers are on there. And Evan, you know me, I went straight to the Fort Bend ISD. I was like, wait, please don't let my teachers be on there that teach my daughter. And they weren't. So shout out to them. Thank you so much. But you can search the teachers' names, by the way. So if you are wondering if your teacher is on there, the link is in our show notes. And you can do a Control F or Command F and search that teacher's name or the district. So take care of that if you are curious on this list. For 58 seasons, the George Theater has been entertaining Houstonians. It's truly a Houston institution and has become the world's leading Christian theater company. And this winter, they have the second and final installment of a new beloved classic, A Texas Carol Part 2. Part 1 premiered to rave reviews in Houston a few years ago, and now the hilarious holiday play is back, November 27th through December 22nd. You can expect an evening of laughs and dysfunction as the family gathers on the East Texas Ranch once more for a Christmas Day wedding. Get your tickets now for A Texas Carol Part 2 at the George Theater at adplayers.org. CityCast Houston listeners get 15% off up to 4 tickets with code Houston15. That's Houston15. Since 1957, the Women's Home has worked to build whole lives in the Houston area. Their mission is to build communities that strengthen women and support families as they reclaim their stability. The Women's Home employs a unique model of care called Whole Life. By embracing the whole person, the Women's Home prepares women and their families to become empowered and productive forces in their communities. One way they do this is through the Cottage Shop. This one-of-a-kind resale boutique is owned and operated by the Women's Home and has been a Houston treasure in Montrose since 1971. The best part? 100% of sales go to the Women's Home, and the Cottage Shop serves as a vocational training site for their clients. So you can pick up high fashion clothing and home goods at incredible prices and give back to the community. Come check out the Cottage Shop during their sidewalk sale on December 7th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. They'll have music and door prizes, and of course, you can thrift for a cause. The Cottage Shop is located at 811 Westheimer Road, or learn more at thewomens'home.org. All right, Evan, let's get to our most overlooked stories of the week. What do you got for me?
The most overlooked story, from my perspective, was a fight at City Hall over firefighter contracts. The city has been asked to approve a settlement for a lawsuit from one firefighter against another because this woman who is a firefighter had an intimate video that she had on her laptop, just for her and her husband, taken by a coworker and then shared with other firefighters. And so she sued this guy for mental anguish, and then she sued the fire department. But what this brought forward is the fact that the HFD works under a 180-day rule, which means that any complaints against other firefighters have to be brought within 180 days, which is astounding. It means that if you can just keep something secret for 6 months, then you can get away with misconduct. And this is something that is in state law. People know it's bad. Councilmember Pollard really brought this up as an issue to be addressed. And the police department actually rewrote their contract so that certain misconduct, the 180-day mark starts not from when the misconduct occurs, but from when the administration is made aware of the misconduct, so that people can bring legitimate complaints against legitimate problems rather than just allow people to keep it secret. But you want to be able to hire good people. You want to be able to fire bad people. And if the state law is written in a way that prohibits that, we probably need a change to state law.
So what is going to be done with this? Has Mayor Whitmire commented on this? Because this seems like a very big deal and can reshape the future of HFD, Houston Fire Department.
Whitmire's basically kicked the can up to the state and said this is state law. They should take care of it. But as Councilmember Pollard has pointed out, you can change it in the city contract to overcome this rule. And he's called for the city to do so. He was quoted in the Chronicle as currently written, the 180-day rule benefits abusers rather than protecting the victims of misconduct by barring investigations more than 180 days after the alleged incident, regardless of when the misconduct is discovered. We create an untenable standard that leaves employees vulnerable and erodes trust in our public institutions. And I think he's absolutely right.
Wow, man, that is wild. That is, I'm just like, I'm speechless right now that it's even a thing, to be honest with you, that they haven't fixed this. And is it because of this specific case that it is being talked about, or has this happened before? Do you know?
I mean, stuff like this happens pretty regularly. Changes were made in HPD, but this one case is bringing attention to how it impacts HFD. And I think also, this is one of those big overlooked themes that so much of what happens at City Hall makes headlines because it feels scandalous or, it seems interesting. But the real way our city is run is through these employee contracts that control HPD and HFD because they are the majority of the budget. Like, that's what the city does.
And at the end of the day, it truly comes down to this, right? Like, the 180-day rule does benefit the abusers rather than protecting the victims of misconduct. It seems like an easy fix and just a logical fix that is the right thing to do. And unfortunately, because of the legalities, because of the people in power, it seems like the right thing to do sometimes doesn't get done. It just doesn't.
Well, listen, it is the job of the firefighters union to protect the firefighters. And the firefighters, if you work for them, you don't want to get fired. And nobody wants to get fired from their jobs. And the union has the ability to go up to Austin with their lobbyists and stop changes from happening because that is in their interest. Do you have a lobbyist up in Austin? I don't have a lobbyist in Austin. I don't have someone to go head to head and argue well, Evan thinks that they should change it because there'd probably be better policy that way. You don't have that person in Austin to do that. And that's just the reality of how the system works up there.
One last thing on this. We know that Mayor Whitmire has a close relationship with the fire department. And is there some of that going on where he doesn't want to step on their toes? He got the big settlement of the contract they wanted, and they have endorsed him. There's, there seems to be a partnership there. But at some point, do you have to, step on those toes and do the right thing?
There's a saying in politics, it takes Nixon to go to China. It takes someone who has built up good faith on one side to push for reforms on that side. If anyone could get it done, it would be Whitmire. He just has to want to do it.
Perfectly said there, Evan. I'm going to go to my most overlooked story, and this is from Brooke Kushwaha of the Houston Landing on how Spring ISD is offering free pre-K to 3-year-olds in an attempt to give them a major learning advantage for the rest of their lives when it comes to reading scores, behavioral issues, and socializing with other kids. This is such a big thing. Now, I love this so much because we're blessed that we can send our kids to an early learning daycare. We sent my oldest daughter, my youngest one is in one right now as well. And the benefits are absolutely incredible. And it truly did give my oldest daughter a head start. We can see it in our youngest daughter as well. I love that Spring ISD is doing this, Evan.
I like it too. And, I hear from academics sometimes who are skeptical of pre-K programs that say the benefits you get in them fall away by third grade, that you really don't get a lifetime lifting. But I think that one, there is value in having a better pre-K experience, a better first grade experience. And two, it's better for parents to be able to know that their kids are somewhere and learning, and it gives them more flexibility in their jobs and their lives. And I think that's something that's missed out on often in the conversations around pre-K.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because public schools are mandated by the state to offer full day pre-K for 4-year-olds from lower income families, citing the benefits of students as well as working parents in need of childcare. But here's where things are going to get a little complicated, at least for me, right? Like when we figure out the financial side of this, because the 89th state legislature gets ready to kick off in January. And again, school funding is going to be a big thing, and school funding from the state hasn't increased much, and programs like these are a financial burden on districts, unfortunately, because of the lack of school funding from the state. And as state leaders continue to play politics with school funding, what is going to happen? Are programs like the mandatory pre-K for 4-year-olds going to be eliminated by districts? Can they afford it? What other programs are being eliminated in order to make room for pre-K? So this is going to get a little messy here.
It is messy, and it's a braiding of state dollars and federal dollars. But there was actually an attempt at a clever political gambit a few years ago to use the taxing authority of the Harris County Department of Education, which is like an appendix agency. It shouldn't exist anymore. Like the legislation that created it has been changed, and it just kind of grandfathered in to use its taxing ability to fund universal pre-K in Harris County. But it got tied up in a political fight. It went before some judges and they said, you can't do this. So it all fell apart. But it seems like there is an opportunity there to get new funding streams to support pre-K if we really wanted to do it.
Yeah. And I just want to clarify that there are no proposals right now to cut funding for pre-K, but there's just not enough money coming in from state funding. And look, districts are going to have to figure things out. Other programs are going to have to be cut, like with the budget with districts. Spring ISD, for example, they did have to cut other programs, and they did have to allocate money away from other programs to make room for pre-K for 3-year-olds. So that's where it gets a little scary for me, like what's going to happen. So we'll keep our eyes on that one, but definitely love what Spring ISD is doing. Do want to mention that the positive side of things here for Spring ISD. Very cool of them to offer pre-K for 3-year-olds. And hey, shout out to them. Love it. Love it.
And good job.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. It's that time of year where we'll be meeting with friends and family to celebrate the holidays, and that feeling of seeing everyone brings me so much comfort, but I know for others it can feel kind of blue and lonely. Therapy is a great way to bring yourself some comfort that never goes away. Therapy helped me learn positive coping skills and to prepare myself emotionally for anything life throws at me. Remember, therapy isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, so it's meant to be convenient and flexible. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Visit BetterHelp.com/CityCast today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/CityCast. Get ready to experience the holiday season like never before in the heart of downtown Houston. This year, downtown transforms into a festive wonderland with 12 unique holiday villages. each brimming with its own special activities to make your season truly merry. From the biggest mistletoe in Texas to delightful pet portraits with Santa, that's where we're going to take our dog for pictures. You also have ice skating, lively silent discos, and so much more. To make exploring even easier, hop on the double-decker holiday bus for a nominal fee and enjoy a magical open-air tour of the city's holiday villages. Downtown Houston is your one-stop holiday destination. Learn more about the 12 holiday villages and plan your adventure at downtownhouston.org/holidays. Get energized and revive this holiday season in downtown Houston. Evan, let's get to our moment of joy. Let's end on a high note here. It's been a long week. So tell me, what made you happy this week?
Oh, my moment of joy was seeing a write-up of Houston's food scene in The New Yorker, of all places. But it wasn't about barbecue or Vietnamese food or Chinese. It was about Nigerian food, about West African food in Houston. The author, Hannah Goldfield, went to Chop and Block. She went around A-Leaf and had this funny line talking about how when Nigerian teenagers consider going to college in the United States, they think of, do I want to go to Harvard, Stanford, Yale, or the University of Houston? Houston has become a hotbed for Nigerian immigrants. And we've all really benefited on the culinary side of things, but also just making our city a bigger, growing, more diverse place. So glad to see Houston getting written up in The New Yorker.
I love that. And yeah, when you drive around West Houston, you see so many West African restaurants, specifically Nigerian restaurants. And of course, Chop and Block gets all the headlines. But as you mentioned, there's so many mom and pop restaurants out there. So love that. There is a booming Nigerian population here in the city of Houston. And it's so cool to see. And again, it just adds not only to our incredible culinary diversity and scene, but it just adds to our community, our city, our diversity, and we get to learn from our neighbors. It's beautiful. I love it.
No, me too.
All right, Evan, my moment of joy is one of my favorite parts of December. It's that time of year where we get to see all of our friends post their Spotify Wrapped. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically a recap of which musical artists you were listening to most during the year. And Apple also does a similar thing called Apple Replay. Now, we could spend some time here breaking down our own personal list, but that wouldn't be fun for the listeners. But you know what would be? Let's talk about Houston, because Spotify released the entire city's Spotify Wrapped. Evan, do you want to take a guess for who the top artists for H-Town were in 2024?
Can I guess Beyonce? Would that be accurate?
No. Queen Bee did not make the list in the top 5.
Oh my gosh. I mean, everybody, it's the year of Taylor Swift, so I presume there's some Taylor Swift on there.
Yes, Taylor Swift was number 1.
People like Sabrina Carpenter? Is that
No, Sabrina Carpenter was not a top artist, but she did have the top song in Houston with Espresso, of course.
Yeah,
I mean,
as a bop.
I hope we can leave that in 2024, by the way, Espresso. That'd be nice. Like, let's not bring it into 2025. But the lack of Houston artists in the top 5 was kind of shocking. No Queen Bee, no Travis Scott. And of course, Travis Scott has had his own issues with the city of Houston. He had one of the biggest tours of the year, no stop in Houston, and rightfully so after what happened with the Astroworld tragedy. So no Travis Scott in there. Here's the top 5. Taylor Swift, Drake, Peso Pluma, Bad Bunny was number 4, and Future was number 5. So shocking, no Houstonians in our own top 5.
That's depressing. We got to put in some real effort. You know, I'll just say maybe if we looked at like the Apple Music Wrapped, and like maybe the people listening to Apple Music were listening to Houston music, and Spotify was just kind of all over the place.
Yeah, maybe we're just an Apple Music city. That's why.
Yeah, that could be it.
I like Apple Music personally because they offer spatial audio. So that's me.
Ooh. Yeah, no, that's where I am. That's what I listen to.
There you go. All right. If you want to share your top 5 with us, feel free to on Instagram at CityCastHouston. I will judge people for their list because every year when I post my list, I get roasted by the group chat. People, I don't know why. People just love making fun of musical taste. So there is that.
What were your top singers this year?
Yeah, Childish Gambino was my number one. He
Uh-huh.
re-released an album and then released a new album, and I loved those two albums. Unfortunately, he did not perform in Houston because right
Mm,
before his tour date, he had some medical issues, and he actually canceled his entire national tour. So that kind of sucked because I was very excited to see him perform for one last time because he is done performing. So yeah,
wow.
Childish Gambino was for me. How about you?
For me, I mean, I was looking at my list and it just reminded me that I let my kids pick what we listen to in the
Yeah.
car. So it's like top artists are Taylor Swift, Number Blocks, and Muppet Babies.
Hey,
That's what we got. But if
there you
I
go.
go down to top albums, at number 3, it's Donald Fagen's Nightfly. So, like, see, I listen to music
Okay,
sometimes.
there you go. Yeah, Blippi made an appearance on my list, and so did the Bluey theme song. So yeah, when kids run your musical apps, your algorithms do get a little messed up. But
Yeah.
hey, long as they're happy, right? That's what matters.
Yes, as long as they're not yelling at me from the back seat, everybody's happy.
If I never hear that excavator song by Blippi, life would be so much better. Evan, thank you so much. That was a lot of fun, and thank you for everything throughout the year. Can't wait to talk to you in 2025.
See y'all next year.
That was our contributor and Pulitzer Prize finalist, Evan Mintz. You can check out all the stories we talked about with the links in our show notes. As we wrap up the week, a big thank you to everyone who shared an episode with their friends. And if you haven't yet, right now is the perfect time to text 3 friends so they can get caught up on the news they need to know. And while you're at it, please rate and review the podcast and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks. That will do it for this week here on CityCast Houston. Our producers this week were Selena C.A. Reynolds, Lizzie Goldsmith, Francisco Kilgore, and of course, Carleon Jones. Our newsletter editors this week were Francisco Kilgore and Brooke Lewis. Our executive producer is Laura Eisensee, and I'm your host, Raheel Ramzanali. Our music is by the band All the Kimonos. Join us on Monday when we sit down with Harris County's District Attorney-elect Sean Tier to hear his plan for his very first day in office. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something new. Evan, just one thing, try not to tap on the table because it is picking up. Yeah, I know it's hard.
Oh, sorry.
But that was a good monologue.